Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we aren't just talking about tactics or formations or expected goals. We're actually breaking down the psychological blueprint of the world's most successful sports institution, and we're doing it through the eyes of a true club legend. If you've ever watched European football and thought, how does one specific club just bend reality to its will, especially when all hope seems literally lost? Well, you are in the exact right place. We're going to deconstruct the mindset, the environment, and the sheer undeniable force of will that creates dominance at this elite level. Okay, let's dive right into this incredible quote here. It instantly demystifies this idea of luck that everyone constantly associates with Real Madrid's Champions League dominance, and it points directly to their mental preparation. I mean, you hear it all the time from casual viewers, right? Oh, they just got lucky again, it was a total fluke. But as one club legend reveals, it is actually the exact opposite. They don't rush when the pressure mounts. They rely on their brains. They're so highly prepared for these chaotic moments that they transform what looks like an absolute miracle to us into a totally calculated, expected outcome for them. It's not magic eyes, it's meticulously crafted psychology. All right, Section 1, the Real Madrid aura, focusing on institutional weight. Because before we can fully grasp what the players go through, we really have to understand the theater they perform in.
Now, notice how this defines that intangible, incredibly heavy pressure that just makes visiting teams completely crumble in the final minutes of a match. Our source describes a literal shift in the stadium's energy. Just imagine being an opponent for a second. You've played a brilliant, tactically flawless game for 84 minutes, but as the clock hits that 85th or 90th minute, this overwhelming wave of history and expectation just crashes down on you. Think about those legendary Champions League nights where massive teams like Manchester City or PSG just collapsed in mere minutes when victory was right there in their grasp. It's not just 11 players you're fighting anymore. It's like the environment itself comes alive. That's the legendary aura of the Bernabéu, and it literally acts as a 12th man that completely suffocates the opposition.
Moving on to Section 2, thriving under immense pressure and the superstar experience. So how does an individual superstar actually survive stepping into that kind of pressure cooker? Well, just look at the sheer volume of success demanded here. If a player can actually withstand that intense Bernabeu environment, look at these numbers. 8 to 9 seasons, 4 Champions League titles, multiple golden boots, and the all-time club goal record. We are, of course, talking about the unbelievable legacy of Cristiano Ronaldo. Hitting just one of these milestones is a career-defining moment for a normal athlete. But when a player of that caliber perfectly aligns their immense talent with the crushing expectations of this specific club, the results aren't just great, they are astronomical. He didn't just survive the pressure cooker, he actively used it to forge one of the greatest sporting careers in human history. But here's the thing. Arriving as a 24-year-old record-breaking signing doesn't just require physical talent. It requires a really specific, defiant, almost stubborn self-belief to overcome the massive challenge of adapting. Imagine stepping into a foreign country, walking into a new locker room filled with absolute veterans who've already won everything, and carrying the immense weight of being the most expensive player ever. The source material points out that surviving this scenario, it doesn't come from being timid or trying to quietly blend in. It comes from a fierce positivity. It's an internal challenge where you tell yourself, I am going to make history here, and I'm going to prove every single doubter completely wrong. It's an absolute refusal to let the badge be heavier than your own ambition. Which brings us to Section 3, Mbappe and the next generation, passing the torch. Having looked at the past, let's see how this exact same psychological gauntlet is being passed down to the new era of superstars right now. This side-by-side comparison shows us that while the eras change, the intense pressure placed on a marquee signing remains identical. On one side, you have the historical context of a young, extraordinarily expensive arrival with a massive point to prove. And that is perfectly mirrored today by Kylian Mbappé stepping into that exact same arena. The challenges of adaptation, the complex locker room dynamics, and those towering, almost suffocating expectations, they're a direct reflection of the past. The institution remains entirely the same, It's really just the names on the back of the jerseys that have changed. And speaking of those names, these are the guys in the new generation with immense potential, tasked with carrying on this ruthless winning mentality into the future. Our source material points out that the future of the sport, and specifically the race for the Ballon d'Or, rests heavily on these shoulders. Kylian Mbappe, Erling Haaland, Jude Bellingham, and Vinicius. They're the ones inheriting this massive global stage. The expectations placed on them are almost incomprehensible to the average person. So how do they ensure they don't get swallowed whole? How exactly does the club protect its investments? Well, there's a really interesting, specific three-step framework that explains exactly why a player like Mbappe is primed to succeed rather than fail under those harsh Madrid lights. And it's not just about his raw, undeniable talent. First, he gets to lean on a club structure that is incredibly solid and built specifically for winners. Second, there's immense stability with a long-tenured coach and a deeply experienced president who know exactly how to shield and protect their players from the relentless media. And third, Mbappe has already shown what he's capable of overcoming in his career, from World Cup finals to carrying domestic teams. Basically, the foundation for success is practically built in before he even takes his first step onto the pitch.
All right, Section 4, the mindset of longevity, the biological battle. Zooming all the way into the micro level now, we're going to explore the internal, biological, and psychological battle required to stay at this elite level for decades.
40. Seriously, let that sink in for a second. 40 years old. In the modern, incredibly high-speed game of football, playing 120 minutes of grueling knockout football, resting for just a couple of days, and then doing it all over again at age 40, that is practically superhuman. We're talking about elite players like Pepe, still grinding out consecutive extra time performances against kids half their age. People constantly ask, why are you still playing? Why put your body through this? But as we're about to see, the real secret to this kind of staggering longevity is fundamentally misunderstood by most of us on the outside. This brilliantly illustrates the speaker's personal formula for longevity, and it's truly fascinating. Basically, your body remembers how you treated it early on, but eventually only your mind can keep you out there on the pitch. Think of it like this. For the first 10 to 15 years of an elite career, your main job is to respect your body. If you treat it well with proper diet, sleep, and recovery, it acts like a physical savings account. You build this deep foundation of physical memory and resilience. But after you're 15, that physical tank is naturally depleting. You simply can't rely purely on youth anymore. From that point on, it becomes a 100% mental game. So defying these natural biological limits requires something way deeper than just physical fitness. You're quite literally fighting the process of life itself here. Average retirements in physically demanding sports usually happen in the 30s, simply because your body fundamentally changes its chemical makeup. Testosterone naturally drops. Hormonal shifts make recovering from a brutal, high-intensity match significantly harder, and it takes so much longer. The aches linger, the fatigue compounds. You simply cannot outtrain biology forever. To push past these natural barriers, you need a psychological edge that is so sharp, it actively overrides your own body's screaming desire to just stop and rest. Now, if you want to know what fuels that mindset, this definition of relentless enthusiasm is the absolute secret ingredient. Our source narrows it down to one single, incredibly powerful word: enthusiasm. But wait, we aren't talking about a casual enjoyment of a weekend hobby here. It is described as a literal addiction, an absolute addiction to the game, to scoring goals, and to performing at the peak of human capability. When most people at that stage of life, having already earned generational wealth, would gladly choose to just sit back on a beach and relax, this fiery, obsessive enthusiasm is what physically forces them out of bed every morning to face that pressure cooker all over again. To get the complete picture of elite psychology, though, we really need to contrast two totally different yet equally valid approaches to ending a legendary career. On the left, we have that endless burning enthusiasm we just talked about, pushing a player well into their 40s through sheer willpower. But then, on the right, look at a player like Toni Kroos. Kroos made a deliberate, highly respected, and honestly almost shocking decision to walk away while still completely at the top of his game, having just won another Champions League. Why? Because athletes aren't monoliths. Sometimes a player's view of life outside the pitch evolves. They discover other interests, other deep priorities like family. And knowing exactly when to close a chapter entirely on your own terms, that is just as powerful as refusing to let it end. So, wrapping up our explainer today, I really want to leave you with this question to ponder about your own life, your own career, and the unique pressures that you face every day. We've decoded the suffocating aura of the Bernabeu, the defiant confidence needed to adapt to immense expectations, and that literal addiction to success that defies the biological aging process. But bringing it all back to you, whether you're grinding it out in a boardroom, studying late in a classroom, or facing your own personal gauntlet, what is the enthusiasm that keeps your mind pushing forward when your body is begging you to quit? Think about that for a bit. Thank you so much for joining me, and keep learning.